have to bear with me with this. I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about PIAAC. So just to give you a little bit of background, I'm sure you know a bit about it, but I just want to give you a little bit of background. PIAAC, the Program for International Assessment of Adult Competencies, it's an international survey of adult skills, and it covers literacy, numeracy, problem solving, and problem solving. Literacy is my area, but I'm going to talk a little bit also today about numeracy and about problem solving because they're really important to our society and I think to the work that you do as well. Just a little note about literacy, and that in the PIAAC survey, it was basically a survey of reading, not of writing. And it also covered the literacy component. So it's about reading and the components of reading. PIAAC is a test, basically a survey. You're asked a number of questions, and we'll have a look at some of the types of questions in a few minutes. Those questions and your response to them are then put on a scale of 1 to 500, 0 to 500, in terms of their difficulty. And that scale is divided up into levels. In literacy and in numeracy, there are 6 levels of proficiency. It starts at below level 1 and goes to level 5. The problem solving, and it's problem solving in technology-rich environments, there is only the 4 levels. A little bit more. PIAAC was administered in Australia in 11-12, yes. It was administered in 24 different countries. I think there's at least another 10-ish that are about to take part or have taken part, and I think there's going to be a third round of them as well. ABS conducted the survey in Australia, and it's a household survey, and I think there was about 8,500 took part, around about that. So it's quite a lot of people, really. People in across the world. The people surveyed were 16 to 64. In Australia, our people are 15, and in that older age group to up to 74 years were surveyed, and which gives us a great lot of data about the people at either ends of the age range. The PIAAC survey could be done by pen and paper. But the preference was for people to do a computer-based one, and that was a new thing for these international surveys. Previous ones, and there have been 2 previous ones, one done in 1996, International Adult Literacy Survey, and another one done in 2006, the Adult Literacy and Life Skills Survey, and they've been pen and paper ones. But this one was mainly a computer-based one. If people couldn't use computers, or they said they couldn't, and when they first started to, they couldn't, they were actually given the opportunity of doing the pen and paper one. The other fantastic thing about this survey is that before people did the literacy, numeracy, problem-solving tasks, they also were asked a whole range of questions, a whole range of background questions. So there is fantastic data there about not just about educational levels, but about language backgrounds, about work, about occupation, about things like what reading you do and what literacy and numeracy that you use both in work and out of work. So we've got this fantastic data set that's there. Okay, let's have a look. And as my first slide might have indicated, the results for Australia show some, there's some really good news, or some pretty good news. There's some mediumly good news, and there's some pretty not good news. And we're going to start off with the quite good news. And that's about problem solving in technology-rich environments. I'm not going to spend all that long on this, and this is probably because this is the bit that I know least about. But I think it's interesting anyway. This shows you how the population of Australia, the proportion of Australians at the different levels in problem solving. You can see the people at below level 1, the proportion at below level 1 up to level 3. You can also see the number of people at each of the different levels as well. You might like to note that there was just over 25% who weren't classified, and that can you read the bits down the bottom? Yes, you can read all of that. An example of a task that people were asked to do. So they were shown, this is just one, and I don't know that this is a real one. I think this is perhaps one of the sample ones that has been released. Not one that was actually used, but very similar. So you'd be asked to look, this one example was you were asked to look at a website, and the website, you were given the information that you had bought a desk lamp, and that you'd been sent the wrong colour desk lamp. And so you have to use the website to actually work out how to return the lamp that you've got and to get the right lamp. The right coloured lamp. And to do this, you've got to find the right part of the website. So you've got lots of tabs at the top and the bottom. You've got to then, when you find that, you've got to do certain steps. So there's a number of steps to do. And then I think, if my memory serves me correctly, you've also got to then send an email about it, but I'm not positive about that one. So they're the types of tasks people are asked to do in problem solving. That task that I described to you is a level 2 task. So that's the bit in the middle there where most, not most people, that was actually considered to be a relatively hard task, and a number of people couldn't do that task. Where Australia sits in relation to other countries. You can see there that Australia actually is, pretty close to the top up there. You might also like to know where Finland is. If you tend going back to what Jane was talking about earlier, Finland's second from the top. I think there's other things that you could say about Finland. One of the great things you could say about Finland is that at some point they have made it that people who are teachers have to hold a master's degree in education. Their teachers are all extremely well qualified in education as well as in their subject area, but in education, which I think is, so maybe we've got something to learn about there. I think that Finland doesn't face some of the other issues that we might face, but I think we can certainly learn from that. Okay, we'll go on now to the literacy and numeracy, the good or nearly good and the bad stories. This is the performance in literacy and numeracy of the Australian population. You can see there the literacy is the grey and the numeracy is the orangey sort of colour. You can also see that there is people, I'm assuming that you know, but the highest level is level 5. The ones at the below level 1 is the lowest level. You can see from this graph, and we can also see the numbers of people who are at each of the different levels too. But you can see from this graph that at the higher ends, at level 3 and at level 4, there is a lot more people that are at that higher end in literacy than there is in numeracy. When we go down to below level 1 and level 2, there are more people with lower levels at that end in numeracy. So that's the not good news, really, the numeracy bit. Just to give you an idea of what people were asked to do in numeracy, at the lower, this is a very low level task. So this is a task where people were shown this photo, and they were asked to look at the photo and to give the total numbers of Coke bottles in the two cases. I think in PIAAC actually they used water bottles and not Coke bottles, but that was used in the first two international surveys. So this was a pre-level 1 item, and tasks at this level are very concrete tasks. They're very familiar sorts of contexts, they're very explicit, there's little or no text to distract the person doing it, and there's really simple processes that are involved in it. However, there were 1.1 million Australians operating at this level. I think that's too many. This is a level 2 item. Now, in this item, people were asked to look at the petrol gauge, and the task states that the petrol tank holds 48 litres and asks how many litres remain in the tank. PIAAC and the other sort of surveys like this, they do allow for a range, so you don't have to be exact in many instances, you don't have to be absolutely exact. This might have allowed a range from of I don't know what, but 5-ish that people could have got it right, so they didn't have to be exactly spot on. This sort of task is slightly more difficult than the previous one. I think you'd have to agree with it. There's a number of other things coming in here. People need to do different things. The tasks that they're asked to do are harder. What they're asked to do with it is more difficult, and there can be more steps. But it's still a fairly basic task, don't you think? 3.6 million Australians could not answer this question. So, just a bit of a summary, the bad news for numeracy, I think the bad news. The percentage and number of people at level 2 or below has increased from 2006 to 2012. And you can see both the percentage and the actual numbers there. And the other thing that I think we should be concerned about is the gender and numeracy. It's pretty obvious. So 49% of males are at levels 1 and 2, 59% of females are at levels 1 or 2. I don't think that's good news. In terms of the where Australia sits in relation to other countries, Australia's performance on numeracy is around average. So, not a lot different from the average, but it's a long way down from where we were with problem solving. And again, you might like to look where Finland is. You can read that, yes. Okay, let's move on to the bit that I know most about, and that's the literacy. This is a literacy task. This was a task that's been used in the previous 2 surveys, and it was used in this survey as well. And in this task, people are asked to look at the medicine label and to determine the number of days that maximum number of days you can take this medicine. This is a below level 1 task, and I want to show you what a description of a below level 1 task is. So tasks at this level have very brief texts. They're on familiar topics. You're only asked to locate a single piece of information. There's seldom any competing information, and I'll come back to that in a minute. The requested information is identical in form to the information on the question or the prompt. Only basic vocabulary knowledge is actually required. The reader's not required to understand the structure or sentence of the paragraphs, and you don't need to make use of any features specific to digital text. So at this level, people were not asked to read digital texts, although they may have been asked to read this text on the computer, depending on their skill levels. So this is what people needed to do. So days appears in both the prompt and in the text. So they needed to identify the word days and find it in the text. There's no other days doesn't appear anywhere else, so they don't have to look for anything else. The word maximum indicates that the respondent needs to look for a number, and the number 7 is located right next to the word days. So they need to locate the word days and they need to locate the number associated with it. As it says there was 620,000 Australians who are operating reading at this type of level. All right, I'm going to jump a few levels now because I want to show you some of the computer-based type tasks that people were asked to do, which were quite new in this survey. So we're going to jump now to level 11 of PIAAC. I won't read all of this out, but you can see from looking at that the tasks that people are asked to do are much more complicated. They're often multi-step tasks. They're needing to integrate, interpret, synthesise information. They have to do something more with it. It's not just about identifying it, they need to do something more with it. The types of texts that they're going to be reading are also much more complex than they were. So just a couple of examples of level 4 tasks, and this is a low level 4 item. Now this item and the next one that I'm going to show you were not in the survey because the OECD haven't released any of the tasks that were new to PIAAC. So they've only ever, the Medico one that I showed you before, the aspirin one, that had been released previously, but they haven't released any more. So these are some that have been, that are very similar to the sorts of tasks that people were asked to do. So this task is presented, as you can see, as a web page. The question is on the left-hand side, and people are asked to highlight a sentence and answer the question that's below. And this question is relatively simple. In this case, the information is not that hard to find. But there's quite a lot of other information around it that they might be confused by. However, when we get to the higher level 4, which is this one, people have to actually read 2 bits of this website. They need to read something that's on this page. They need to find information on this page, and they need to go to the webmail page as well. Then once they get to identify those pages, they actually have to then to do something on both the pages. It's not just on one page. There's about 2 million Australians who could answer this question. I guess I want you people in libraries to be thinking about some of the consequences of this for your clients. However, the good news is that the number of people at level 2 and below, the percentage at level 2 and below from 2006 to now has actually decreased. There could be a range of reasons for this, but whatever it is, it's very nice news. Of course, because of the population growth, though, the number of people at those levels has actually increased. In terms of where Australia stands internationally, we're pretty much up there with Finland as a whole. So these are the average scores. We're 4th and a long way up from the average, and just a few off Finland and Japan. And I don't know if you noticed earlier, but Japan's up there pretty much for all of them. They're doing pretty well. I think it's really interesting to have a look at the age, how people go at the different ages. And this is level 3, 4 and 5 by age. So this is people at the higher end. you can actually see that the graph goes up to about, goes up from 15 up to 24, sort of hits a peak around 25 and stays much the same up until about 44 and then goes down. I think it's also interesting that young people 15 to 19 have skills very similar to 45 to 54-year-olds and much better skills than those over 54. So I don't know how old the people are here, it's very hard to see with these slides. But you might like to have a think about how you feel about that. Young people's skills, of course, are still developing. So people in the 15 to 19, 20, 24-year age range and even into the 25 to 30-year age range, they're people whose skills are actually still developing. A lot of them will still be in education. I mean, Jane was talking earlier about the fact that a lot of people don't leave home until they're 30. So a lot of and there's good reason for that, but a lot of these people are still developing their skills. And even when they first get into jobs, there's a lot of learning that goes on at that point too. There's a lot of new literacy and new numeracy things that are happening. So if you looked at the graph for numeracy, you would find a relatively similar graph to this too. The other interesting thing, I think, is that older adults in Australia actually perform a lot better than older adults in a whole lot of other countries. The gap between our older and younger people isn't all that great. In some countries, the gap is very broad. So countries like Korea, Finland, Germany, have got very big gaps between the older and the younger people. So the younger people are doing a lot better than the older people. The older peoples would be a lot further down. I really should have done this as a pointer, but I didn't get around to that. People in the UK, though, the gap between the older and the younger age group, there's very little gap there, so they're very close. In fact, I think the older age group in the UK could actually be higher than the young people, but I have to revisit that. So one of my interests is why people's skills start to decline really after 44 years. It's possibly that this is a decline in cognitive skills, but it's also possibly a changed use in skills as well. But I think there's a bit there that I've got up there, so what, we hardly ever need to perform at our highest level. On a day-to-day basis, our skills don't have to be at that very top end. So an acquired knowledge may actually offset some of our decline in skills. And maybe demands change as we get older, so maybe it doesn't matter so much that we're not doing as well as a group. But this doesn't actually tell you a lot about individuals. So it may not be that not every individual's skills, once they get to 44, will necessarily start to decline. Some people's will improve, actually, but there's some. I was reading in the plane, because I had a long sit in the plane today getting here, that there's something like 1 in 3 older people are called termed successful ages, meaning that their skills actually don't decline, or they don't decline all that much. I'd like to think I'm going to be in that category, or am in that category, but I don't know. Yes, you can. I'm just about there. One of the things, though, that I think is really important for all of us to remember, and you people in particular, is that the PIAAC survey actually shows, because they ask so many lovely background questions, is that the more people read, the better their literacy skills are, the better their reading skills, and the better your reading skills, the more you're going to actually read. And it's not just work reading that's related to work. In fact, the survey actually shows that those people who undertake a range of literacy and numeracy activities outside work are likely to be more proficient than those who do it within the work situation. I think I've probably run out of time. Can I show you one more graph? This is actually one of the younger 16 to 24-year-olds, and I just think that it's also worth thinking about this, is that while Finland is still second and Japan's up the top, Australia actually has fallen down the scale in terms of rankings, if that's how you want to look at it. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that our young people are not doing as well, but maybe it's indicating that we're not doing as well in relation to other countries in terms of that younger age group too. And so maybe that's another thing that we need to think about. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Dan.